Hello, this is an overview of the Strengthening Stark tool called our GIS platform. This platform was built in partnership with a variety of Stark County organizations, specifically our Stark County Auditor's Office. So we just want to thank them for their effort and leadership in building this platform. This platform has been created to help our local leaders, elected officials, educators, and a variety of other agencies better visualize the assets that we have in Stark County. The web link for the platform is tinyurl.com/StarkGIS2. So that's the link for our platform, and that's where you can find it. When you log into it, you will, just to orient you to what you're seeing, on the right side, you will see three panels. The top panel identifies the layers related to our local infrastructure. The next panel highlights layers related to our people or population. The third panel highlights variables and data elements that highlight our economy or our business capabilities. And on the left, there are a variety of filters that you can also utilize. We just want to highlight anytime we're dealing with data, there's always the possibility that the data is outdated. So please think of this data as referential. So good as a reference point, but if you're making specific decisions, we would defer that to speak to local additional agencies, perhaps local businesses or other agencies who can help verify the content of what you're seeing. But again, it's a great place to start to understand what's going on. So without further ado, let's dive right in. What you can do is we can zoom in a little bit just so we can see the different parts of Stark County. And let's start enabling different layers. So on the top right, we can look at for example, where childcare facilities are. This data was provided to us by the Jobs and Family Services of Stark County. And again, the data is about 9 months old, so it's possible that some of this data may be outdated. There may be new daycares. Some of the daycares may have closed, may have expanded their services. So you can see each of the child care center that's here and basic information about them. We can also see what the local bus routes looks like. So the idea behind the platform was to help our local citizens be able to better find jobs, be able to better find services. The three biggest issues we hear in Stark County is access in connecting with jobs, is people find barriers with transportation, childcare, and housing. So while the housing piece hasn't been fully addressed yet, hopefully the platform can help you see, for example, where childcare centers are, where there's bus routes. I can also click on where the bus stops are, and our chart gets a little busy, but hopefully our residents can start to understand where they're living, where there's a childcare center, where there are bus stops, etc. Something else you can also do, again, it's an interesting way to look at our information, is we can see the quarter-mile walking radius. So this is, again, is a great tool for perhaps local elected officials who are seeing how much of our population is served by the bus routes. If I zoom out, we can see the red color that you're seeing identifies the amount of geography that, within a quarter-mile walking distance of the bus stop, how much of our population are we serving? We can do the same thing with our childcare centers as well. So if we want to see how, for those families that may not have access to a vehicle, how much of our population are we serving by those specific childcare centers, we can get a sense of what that picture looks like as well. So these are some of the infrastructure layers. There's also for economic developers who are looking to figure out what the local different areas and districts look like. We can see what the economic development zones for enterprise zones looks like. There's that. We can see what the community reinvestment areas are. We can look at things like where there's railroads. And obviously sometimes we want to be able to look and see where exactly the boundaries of the different townships and cities are. We can look at that. And if someone wants to look at information by zip codes, we can also get a quick sense of where are the different zip codes. So these are the data elements related to our infrastructure. Let me pull out now and see what our demographic data looks like. We also wanted to understand where exactly are people living, what are the profiles of individuals living in different areas of Stark County. And again, it's important to highlight here that this data is mapped based on census tracts. That's a way in which the federal government tracks the population distribution across the entire country. So each block you're seeing is a specific census block. This data, I believe, was pulled in 2017, so it's slightly dated, but still referentially should be helpful. And we can click on each one of these blocks and see what the different dynamics. So we can see, for example, when we check the population density, we can see what the population there looks like. Total population is 2,900 in this specific census block. Here it's 2,100, and we can keep looking at other dimensions as well. So percent of population with degrees. The lighter color highlights a slightly higher amount of education. The darker represents slightly less. And again, we can see what those dynamics look like. This information could be really helpful for our educational partners who are trying to figure out where to recruit more candidates for higher education. We can look at per capita income. What does per capita income look like for people in different census blocks? And so again, as we get to understand how the county looks, perhaps there are ways in which economic developers, elected officials can drill in to understand what's going on in their backyard. Another important element is labor force participation rate. So this data tells us how many people are actually working. Of working age population, how many people are working. Again, great data point to understand if you're looking to recruit people for jobs, for training. We can click on different blocks and see, for example, in this particular census blocks, there are 1,100 people in the labor force with 506 people not in the labor force. So roughly a third of individuals that are not working that could be, versus this darker area where we see close to 62%. So 2/3 of individuals are not working who could be working. So again, great question for us to wonder as to what interventions or support can be provided to move some more people into the labor pool. We can look at unemployment rate. And again, this data is dated. We're sure post-COVID, this data will look very different, but we can click and see what the unemployment rates in this particular block. There's 25% unemployment here, 0.9% unemployment. Going over to Maslin, we can see there are areas that, there's a census block with close to 30% unemployment. Right next to it, there's 1% unemployment. So understanding what are the dynamics playing out here that's creating such a stark discrepancy is helpful for us to explore. Percent of population living in poverty, and obviously some of these trends will follow a certain pattern: per capita income, labor force participation, poverty rates. Here we've also tried to map poverty rate by age, so you can see, for example, in this particular block, we have 24% of close to 30% of individuals that are living below the poverty rate, and we can see how those numbers break down by age. And you can see how dramatically different parts of Stark County look here. For example, the poverty rate is less than 6.3%, and in some of the worst hit areas, close to half of our population in certain census tracts are living in poverty. And then something really interesting that the Stark County Auditor's Office did for us is they took all of these variables and mashed them together so you can see one picture where and understand where we have areas that are most economically struggling. And so you can see, if there's one quick point and click data point, you can use this to look at all those variables in one place. So these are all the population related data elements. Next, let's go to our businesses. So we were able to look at the businesses in Stark County. And this is the area where on the left, you can start to filter. So if I want to look at businesses that are, say, for example, in the construction industry, first turn on the business layer and then turn on the industry layer for construction, or pick whichever ones you want to look at and turn this filter on. And now we can see all the construction businesses in Stark County. Now this data is again about a year and a half, 2 years old, and the data is always very fluid. So it's helpful to note that it's a good place to start. And then you can see there's a little bit of coding here, so you can see small, mid-sized, and large businesses. So right here, Iron Rock is an employer that has more people. Here's another one that sort of falls in the mid category, Abbott Electric Incorporated. So again, this is an area where individuals looking for jobs, economic developers, etc., can go in here and play with the data to understand where our various businesses are at. And again, can't highlight enough that the data is always evolving and shifting, so please keep that in mind. We also have job openings data, but this data is not current. I really want to highlight this point. This 3,400 jobs is not an accurate number. We are in the process of updating this data. This is old data, so we would not put a lot of emphasis on this data right now. We are working to map better data related to jobs on here, but it would be helpful to see what is coming down the road for us. So idea would be that we could map every single job that's in Stark County, and here you'll be able to ideally then start to use filters and see, if you're looking for a job in the education sector, okay, there's a teacher need here, and so we're working through that. We're not quite there. We could also eventually be able to filter based on educational level required for the job and potentially the wages of those jobs. And there are some other elements here as well. So again, looking at some of our economic districts, whether it's where's the Canton SID, which is the downtown development area. You can look at some of the other economic elements such as DORA, which is another economic program that's located specifically in Canton, which is right there. So this is the current Stark County GIS platform. Hopefully it can help you better understand what's going on in Stark County. And if you have any questions, we certainly encourage you to reach out to the Strengthening Stark office, and we would be happy to walk you through anything here that may not be clear. And thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate any feedback that you have as you start using the platform. Thank you. Take care.